All right, we are at 11 o'clock Pacific time. Let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. This is Drew Amoroso again, and thank you for joining us today for this week's edition of 11 at 11. I appreciate you being here, and congratulations to you for taking some time out of your busy week to work on yourself and on your workday. So today I want to explore this pesky, counterproductive, limiting feeling that follows us when we make decisions. And it's the potential for us to experience the feeling of decision regret. So when we're faced with an opportunity to make a decision, one of the things that impacts our ability to get behind a decision that we want to make, or to make a choice with clarity and confidence, or to enjoy and live fully in the moment and celebrate a choice that we have made, is our fear that we're going to make the wrong decision or that we've already made the wrong decision. So I want you to just picture a time when you've been faced with a choice. Maybe it was a career choice, a choice about what school to go to, whether to move to a new house or to a new apartment, whether to end a relationship. And I think we all can call to mind that feeling where when we're confronted with a decision, we play out in our mind what it would look like if we made the wrong decision. Right? We see ourselves sort of sitting in this deep place of regret or hesitancy for thinking about a choice that we may make later. And we do that before we even make the choice at all, right? So that's sort of the pre-decision sense of regret that we put ourselves through. We also have the tendency, once we've made a decision, to look back and experience regret about not having made a different choice or what we would call the right decision. Right? How often does your mind draw you back to a decision that you've made in the past and you end up just sort of beating up on yourself for not having made a different choice, right? We say things like, if I had only known ... or if I knew then what I know now ... right? And I think if you look closely, we do this on a micro and macro level all the time, from bigger decisions like, where do I want to live, to smaller decisions like, I wish that I had ordered, the ravioli instead of the lasagna, right? We do it at this macro and micro level. So there are all sorts of things we could discuss related to decision making, but what I wanted to talk about today is the second part that I just mentioned, which is experiencing regret after we've made a decision. And specifically, I want to walk through how we often handle these thoughts post-decision. And then I want to give you a new way to reframe your thoughts around decisions that you've made. So let's use an example here to illustrate this point. So let's just imagine for a moment that you want to make a career change and you're plugging along in your current position, and eventually you reach the point where the pull of wanting to make that change becomes so strong that you find yourself faced with a decision. And let's just say, for the sake of this example, that you've narrowed it down to 3 options. Option 1, leave your current job and pursue your own business. Option 2, leave your current job and go to work for another company. So maybe a similar position, but at a different company. And then number 3, stick it out at your current job just a little bit longer, right? Leave things as they are. And let's also say, for the sake of this example, that you decided to go with option 1. You're going to leave your current job to start a new business. As soon as you make that decision and start down the path of pursuing option 1, this is where we often start to experience decision regret. And we experience decision regret because upon making that choice, we then start to engage with the things that come along with that choice. And if we experience any kind of resistance, or if our experience doesn't match what we had envisioned or dreamed it would be like to pursue option 1, then our mind immediately starts to question our decision, right? That feeling of doubt creeps in, and we begin to imagine what it would have been like had we decided to pursue options 2 and 3. So in many ways, what happens when we start to think about options 2 and 3 is we romanticize what it would have been like to live out those other options, right? We start to build the story about how good life would have been had we chosen option 2 or option 3. So in our example, when I choose to leave my current job and start my own business, as soon as I give my notice, as soon as I create a business plan, as soon as I form a company, as soon as I start to build my own website, and as soon as I start to think about how I'm going to acquire clients and how I'm going to make money each month, the friction that comes along with having to follow through with those things causes my mind to yearn for something simpler or an experience that might be more frictionless or that matches that like beautiful idea of what I thought it would be like to pursue this option. And so I start to think about option 2, which was taking a new job at a different company. And I think, taking that other job sounds pretty good right now. I probably would have liked it there. The people were nice. I probably could have used those extra benefits that they were offering. I really liked the team I would have been working with. And so I tend to romanticize what that reality could have, or what I think it would have looked like. Or I start to think about option 3, which was to just stay at my current job. And I start to say things like, you know what? It really wasn't that bad after all. Company was growing. I was probably about 3 or 4 months away from a promotion. Maybe I could have gone to my boss and negotiated a higher salary. Why did I throw away those 5 years that I invested in working in that company and working my way up just to now make this decision to leave, right? And again, our minds begin to romanticize what that reality would have looked like. So what I want to invite you to think about is how this view of option 2 and option 3 are really grounded in a reality that never has and never will come to pass. The entire foundation for my romanticism of those options and my thoughts about what it would have been like to make a different decision are rooted in assumptions and conjecture and a longing for something that appears like it would have been better for me, but that I have no basis in reality to assume or to believe it actually would have turned out that way, right? These alternate paths don't mean anything, right? These, option 2, option 3, they don't mean anything. They're a projection of an alternate reality that will never come to pass. And I have to understand that my mind is taking me there because the thought of what it would have been like to make these other choices feels nice and safe, right? And it feels nice and comfortable because I can make up any story I want about how great they would have been. And my mind tends to leave out the part about the costs or the friction that I might have experienced had I made those other choices. And what happens is because I romanticize these alternate realities, I end up living in a state of regret, which includes not only beating up on myself for not making different decisions, but also depriving myself of the ability to get behind the decision that I did make and also think clearly about my current circumstances and the choices that I may want to make next because I'm living in this alternate reality. So in other words, every moment I spend sitting in regret about a past decision is a moment that I can't devote to making an informed decision about where I am and what I want to do next. So how do we start to address decision regret? I want to give you 3 things to think about here. First, just as a starting point, with many of the concepts that we talk about, the first place is just a recognition that we're sitting in a place of decision regret, right? We have to be able to catch ourselves when we're looking backward and we're already experiencing anxiety or regret about a decision that we haven't even made yet and how that might be paralyzing, or how you might be looking backward at a decision that you've made and you're continuing to beat up on yourself for that past choice. We do this all day long at the micro and macro levels, and changing our thinking patterns around this begins with catching ourselves when we're engaged in it. So that's part number 1. Number 2 is when you catch yourself experiencing decision regret, shift your focus toward this concept. How can I make my next decision based on the best information I have at that moment or in this present moment? So moving forward, when you're confronted with a decision, instead of letting your mind take you to a place where you're paralyzed by the feeling that you have the potential to make a wrong decision, remind yourself that all you can ever do is make a decision based on the best information that you have at the time. Also, recognize that when you make a decision and take action on that decision, you will inevitably learn new pieces of information and have experiences that color your current reality, but that you never could have accounted for had you not had those experiences that came after that decision. So in other words, you can't try to justify a past decision based on a current set of information. Those are two different realities, and they'll never sync up. And we shouldn't let ourselves play that game of wishing we had made a different decision based on what we know now. It's an unfair comparison that will always lead to disappointment. So when you realize that all you can ever do is make a decision based on where you are in that moment, then you can start to shift your focus to an understanding of who you are in that moment and what you need in that moment, right? So you flip from being this passive participant, right, and feeling paralyzed by fear, to someone who's actively trying to gather as much information as possible so that you can make that next decision with confidence in a place of being who you are and what you believe is best for you in that moment, given the information that you have in that moment. That's really all you can ever ask yourself to do. And then third and finally, remember to ask, what did I learn that will help me make an even more informed decision the next time? So the idea here is to move from regret to a place of learning, right? So that instead of sitting in a place of fear, you become someone who is constantly processing that new information to make an even better, more informed next decision. If you think about our day-to-day experience, it's really just a set of decisions and choices that we make. One thing leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another. So if you can become skilled at taking fear and regret out of the equation and replacing them with the ability to use what you learn to make decisions and not live in this alternate reality, then pretty soon the decisions start to make themselves and you start to have a deeper sense of trust of your instincts. Okay, before we sign off for today, does anyone have an example that they might be willing to share involving some decision regret that you may have experienced recently? Maybe something that you did to move past it, maybe projecting about a future decision. And now that we've talked about this, you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm totally placing myself in this future reality and viewing myself as someone who's already made a wrong decision before I've even started. Anything like that come to mind for anyone? We will leave it there for today. But as you move through your work week this week, think about whether your mind is drawing you into a place of having decision regret about things you've done in the past, or potentially projecting about this future reality that hasn't come to pass yet, but you're already picturing yourself making a wrong decision. And so that may be paralyzing you in the moment. Think about this. I think it probably is coming up a lot throughout our day and we don't even know it and we're not aware of it. Okay. Thanks again for joining, everyone. We would love to connect with you and get your help spreading the word about this series. If you could share it with a friend or give us a shout out on social media, that would be awesome. I'd really appreciate it. I've got our tags here at the bottom of the screen. Let's connect on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Next episode is Monday, September 21st. We're going to take a look at a really powerful concept, which is looking at challenges from the perspective of what your future self would tell you and how you overcame that challenge. It's a really interesting thought exercise that I've seen work in a lot of different applications. So great topic for us to address next week. I will look forward to diving into that with you on September 21st. I will see you then. Go have a great work day.